Welcome, adventure seekers, to an epic journey into the world of the Vikings. We're thrilled to have you with us as we live a day in the life of a warrior, seafarer, and settler, uncovering the legends of the Norse. If you're excited for this saga, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with friends. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. You joining us from the fjords of Norway, the highlands of Scotland, or somewhere far across the seas. Let's dive into the rugged heart of Scandinavia, where the clang of steel and the roar of waves herald the dawn of a Viking warrior's day. In the 9th century, on a windswept Norwegian coast, where fjords carved paths through towering cliffs, the day began for Harald, a Viking warrior whose name echoed with the promise of glory. As dawn broke over a village of wooden longhouses, the air thick with the scent of pine and smoked fish, Harald's morning was a ritual of strength and resolve. Picture a misty shore, waves crash against rocky cliffs, long ships bob in the harbour, and smoke curls from thatched roofs as roosters crow. This chapter follows Harald's morning training, where sweat and steel forged a warrior ready for battle and bound by the will of Odin. Harald, broad-shouldered with a russet beard, stepped from his long house, his breath misting in the chill air. Clad in a linen tunic and leather boots, he gripped an axe and shield, striding toward the training ground, a packed earth clearing ringed by pines. Imagine the scene. Warriors gather, their laughter mingling with the clatter of wooden swords, as the village stirs with the rhythm of hammers and bleating goats. Harald joined his comrades, their faces set with determination, ready to hone the skills that would carry them to distant shores or defend their kin. Training began with grueling drills to build endurance. Harald ran along the shore, boots crunching on gravel, the salty wind stinging his face as he dodged rocks and leapt streams. Picture him swinging his axe at a wooden dummy, each strike splintering timber, his muscles straining under the weight of imagined foes. An older warrior, scarred from battles in Francia, barked orders, correcting stances and urging precision. These exercises, fueled by sweat and camaraderie, prepared the Vikings for the chaos of combat, where survival hung on speed and strength. Swordplay was the heart of the morning. Harald sparred with his friend Thorstein, their wooden blades clashing, shields thudding under blows. Imagine the dance of combat. Harald ducks a swing, his counter-strike swift, as onlookers cheer, their voices echoing through the pines. The warriors practiced the shield wall, standing shoulder to shoulder, a tactic that crushed enemies from Lindisfarne to Paris. Each move was a step toward glory, every bruise a badge of honor. Rituals wove meaning into the training. Before drills, Harald offered a small sacrifice, a horn of mead poured at a room-carved stone for Odin, seeking strength and victory. Picture the moment. His calloused hands traced the stone's etchings, smoke from a nearby fire rising like a prayer, as he vows to fight with courage. These acts bound the warriors to their gods and each other, forging a brotherhood that would face storms and steel. Harald's morning training, steeped in sweat and sacred vows, was but the first spark of a warrior's day. Forged in the dawn's light, he stood ready for the chieftain's council, where plans for a daring raid would unfold, carrying him toward the seas and the saga of the Vikings. In the rugged embrace of a Norwegian fjord, where the midday sun cast long shadows over wooden longhouses, Viking warrior Harald joined his comrades in the heart of their coastal village. The morning's training had sharpened his body and spirit, but now, in the 9th century, the pulse of adventure quickened as he entered the chieftain's longhouse for a council to plan a daring raid. This chapter plunges us into the smoky, torchlit hall where strategies were forged, loyalties tested, and dreams of glory kindled. Here, under the gaze of their leader, Harald and his fellow Vikings plotted a journey across the sea, their fate bound to the will of Odin and the promise of plunder. The longhouse, its oak beams carved with serpentine runes, buzzed with anticipation as warriors gathered. Picture a cavernous hall, furs line the walls, a fire crackles in the central hearth, and the air hums with the scent of pine and mead. Harald, his axe slung at his side, took his place among grizzled veterans and eager youths, their faces etched with scars and resolve. At the head sat Chieftain Eric, a bear of a man with a silver-streaked beard, his throne adorned with antlers and draped in wolf pelts. His voice, deep as the fjord itself, commanded silence as he unveiled the target, a wealthy monastery on the distant shores of Northumbria. Planning the raid was a dance of strategy and ambition. Eric unrolled a crude map, scratched on leather, marking coastlines and rivers. Imagine the scene. Warriors leaned forward, their calloused fingers tracing routes across the sea, as Eric points to Northumbria's undefended riches: gold chalices, silver coins, and sacred relics ripe for the taking. Harold suggested a swift strike at dawn, using the tide to mask their Draka's approach, while Thorstein, his sparring partner, proposed a diversion to draw out defenders. Debates flared some urged caution, fearing Anglo-Saxon reprisals, while others, like Harold, burned for glory, their eyes gleaming with visions of loot. The council wasn't just about tactics, it was a test of unity. Eric, wielding authority earned in countless battles, listened to each voice, his nods binding the group. Picture Harold speaking boldly, his words steady despite the chieftain's piercing gaze, advocating for a smaller, faster crew to ensure stealth. The warriors voted by raising their axes, a chorus of iron affirming the plan. Runes were cast to seek Odin's blessing, the clatter of stones on the floor a whisper of divine will. A griot-like skald, strumming a lyre, recounted tales of past raids, stoking courage with stories of Thor's thunder and Ragnar's triumphs. As the council ended, preparations began. Harold was tasked with readying the Draka, ensuring its sails were taut and oars sturdy. Imagine warriors dispersing from the longhouse, some sharpened blades, others check provisions: dried fish, barley bread, and ale casks, while the village hums with purpose. The raid's promise hung heavy, a mix of peril and reward, as Harold felt the weight of his oath to return with riches or not at all. With the plan set, the day moved toward sacred rituals, where offerings to the gods would seal their resolve before the sea called. This council was the crucible where Harold's day as a warrior took shape, forging bonds and strategies under the chieftain's command. As we move forward, we'll follow Harold to the sacred rites that prepare him for battle, where the gods' favor is sought, and the Viking spirit burns bright. In the wind-swept heart of a 9th century Norwegian village, where the fjord's icy waves whispered of distant shores, Viking warrior Harold stood ready to face the gods. The morning's training had honed his blade, and the chieftain's council had set the course for a raid on Northumbria. But now, as midday faded into afternoon, the air grew heavy with sacred purpose. This chapter immerses us in the rituals that bound Harold and his comrades to their deities Odin, Thor, and Freyr, seeking divine favor for the perilous journey ahead. In a clearing by the sea, amid stone altars and crackling fires, the Vikings' faith came alive, forging their resolve in the shadow of the gods. The ritual began in a sacred grove, a short walk from the village, where ancient pines loomed over a weathered stone altar carved with runes. Picture the scene. Harold, his linen tunic stained with sweat, joins warriors in a circle, their faces solemn yet fierce, as the village seer, a woman with silver hair and piercing eyes, prepares the offering. The altar, slick with sea spray, holds a freshly slaughtered goat, its blood pooling in a bronze bowl, a gift to Odin, the All-Father, who grants victory or Valhalla. The seer chants, her voice rising like the wind, invoking Odin's wisdom to guide their blades and shield their Draka. The warriors participated, each making a personal vow. Harold knelt before the altar, his rough hands gripping a small iron amulet shaped like Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. Imagine him whispering an oath, to fight bravely, to honor his kin, and to return with plunder or die in glory. He pricked his finger with a dagger, letting a drop of blood mingle with the offering, sealing his bond with the gods. Around him, comrades carved runes into wooden staves, symbols of strength, and luck, tossing them into a fire that roared with pine logs, its smoke curling skyward as a plea for divine protection. The community joined the ritual, strengthening their shared resolve. Women and children from the village gathered, bringing bread, ale, and dried fish to offer Freyr, the god of fertility, for a safe return. Picture the crowd. A mother in a woven shawl pours ale onto the altar, while children clutch carved idols, their eyes wide with awe. A skald, strumming a lyre, sang of Odin's ravens and Thor's thunder, weaving tales of past victories to inspire the warriors. The chant grew into a communal song, voices rising in harmony, binding the village to the raiders' fate, their melody echoing across the fjord. As the ritual closed, Harold and his comrades marked their shields with sacred runes, painting them with ochre to ward off harm. Imagine the final moment. The seer sprinkles blood from the bowl onto the warriors, her blessing a shield against the perils of the sea. The fire's embers glowed, and the group dispersed, their hearts alight with purpose, ready to board the Draka. Harold felt the weight of his oath, a promise to the gods that fueled his courage as the raid loomed near. These rituals were the soul of Harold's day, tying his warrior's path to the divine. With Odin's blessing sought, the stage was set for the raid's chaos and glory. As we move forward, we'll follow Harold into the heart of battle, where the clash of steel and the roar of the sea test his vows on the shores of a foreign land. As the sun dipped low over the North Sea, painting the waves in hues of fire, Harold and his Viking band approached the shores of Northumbria in their sleek Draka. The 9th century Norwegian warrior, tempered by morning training, steeled by the chieftain's counsel, and blessed by Odin's rituals, now faced the crucible of battle. This chapter plunges us into the heart of a raid on a wealthy coastal monastery, where the clash of steel, the roar of flames, and the thrill of plunder defined a Viking's glory. In the fading light, Harold's heart pounded with the promise of riches and the peril of death, his fate woven with the sea and the sword. The Draka glided silently toward the shore, its dragon-headed prow cutting through mist. Picture the scene. Oars dip rhythmically, warriors in leather armor crouch low, their shields painted with runes glinting faintly. Harold gripped his axe, his pulse racing, as the rocky beach emerged, dotted with the monastery's stone walls and wooden crosses. Chieftain Eric signaled the attack, and the Vikings leapt ashore, their boots splashing in shallow waves. With a unified roar, they charged, forming a shield wall that surged like a tide toward the unsuspecting monks, who fled in panic, their prayers drowned by the din of war. The battle was swift and brutal. Harold swung his axe, splintering a wooden gate as monks scattered, clutching sacred relics. Imagine the chaos. Viking swords clash against makeshift spears, sparks flying as Harold blocks a desperate blow from a monk's iron staff. Thorstein, at his side, felled an opponent with a single strike, his shield absorbing arrows from a lone defender atop the wall. The monastery's chapel, adorned with gold chalices and silver crosses, became a storm of looting warriors stuffed treasures into sacks, their laughter mingling with the crackle of flames as thatched roofs caught fire. Strategy and instinct guided Harold through the fray. The Vikings moved as a pack, their shield wall breaking only to pursue fleeing monks or seize loot. Picture Harold vaulting a stone bench, chasing a monk clutching a jeweled book, his axe raised, but sparing the man in exchange for the prize. Eric's voice boomed, rallying the men to secure the treasury before Anglo-Saxon reinforcements could arrive. The Vikings' training shown each warrior knew his role, their movements honed in the morning's drills, their courage fueled by Odin's blessing and the Skald's tales of glory. As the raid ended, the Vikings retreated to their Draka, laden with gold, silver, and sacred tomes. Imagine the shore at twilight. The monastery smoulders, its bell silent, as Harold and his comrades haul sacks aboard, their faces flushed with triumph. A few warriors bore wounds, their blood staining the sand, but none had fallen a sign of Odin's favor. The Draka pushed off, its sails catching the evening breeze, carrying the Vikings back to sea with their plunder, the weight of victory heavy in their hands. This raid was the heartbeat of Harold's day, a whirlwind of violence and triumph that defined a warrior's life. With the monastery's riches secured, the Vikings sailed toward home, their spirits high, ready for the feast that awaited. As we move forward, we'll join Harold in the Longhouse, where the spoils are shared, and the night erupts in a victorious celebration under the stars. As twilight draped the Norwegian fjord in a cloak of stars, The Viking village hummed with triumph, its longhouses aglow with torchlight and laughter. Harold, the 9th century warrior, returned from a daring raid on a Northumbrian monastery, his draka heavy with gold, silver, and sacred relics. The morning's training had honed his blade, the chieftain's council had charted his course, the rituals had secured Odin's favor, and the battle had won glory. Now, as night fell, the village gathered in the great longhouse for a feast to celebrate their victory, a raucous celebration of plunder, kinship, and tales that would echo through the ages. This chapter plunges us into the heart of the Viking spirit, where mead flowed, skalds sang, and the spoils of war bound the community in a night of revelry. The longhouse, its oak beams blackened by years of hearth smoke, was a cavern of warmth and noise. Picture the scene. Furs and tapestries adorn the walls, their woven wolves and ravens dancing in the firelight, while tables groan under platters of roasted boar, barley bread, and smoked herring. Harold, his tunic stained with sea salt and battle dust, stepped inside, greeted by cheers from warriors and kin. The air thrummed with the scent of pine, ale, and sizzling meat, as women in woolen dresses poured mead from carved horns, their laughter mingling with the crackle of the central fire. Children darted between benches, wide-eyed, clutching wooden carvings of Thor's hammer. At the hall's heart sat Chieftain Eric, his antlered throne elevated on a platform, his presence commanding reverence. Imagine him rising, a silver goblet looted from the monastery in hand, his voice booming as he praised the warrior's courage. Harold, seated among his comrades, felt pride swell as Eric recounted the raid's success, the shattered gates, the fleeing monks, the glittering hall now piled before the throne. The chieftain distributed the spoils, a ritual as vital as the raid itself. Picture Harold receiving a silver arm ring, its weight a badge of honor, while Thorstein, his sparring partner, claimed a jeweled cross, its gemps winking in the torchlight. Even the youngest warriors got a share coins or cloth ensuring loyalty and unity. The feast was more than food and drink, it was a celebration of Viking identity. A skald, his fingers dancing over a lyre's strings, wove the raid into song, his voice rising above the din. Envision the crowd falling silent as he sang of Harald's axe splitting the monastery gates, likening it to Thor's hammer cracking the sky. The warriors roared, banging shields on tables, their cheers a thunderous hymn to Odin. Harold, his mead horn raised, joined the chant, his heart alight with the tale of his own valor. Women and elders added verses, praising the gods and ancestors, their voices weaving a tapestry of myth that bound the village to its past and future. The night grew wilder as the feast unfolded. Picture a wrestling match breaking out near the hearth. Harold grappled with a younger warrior, their laughter echoing as they tumbled, cheered by drunken onlookers. Dancers, adorned with beads and furs, swirled to the rhythm of a bone flute, their movements mimicking waves and battles. A storyteller recounted Ragnar Lothbrok's legendary raids, inspiring the young to dream of their own sagas. Harold, flushed with mead, shared a quiet moment with his sister Astrid, gifting her a looted brooch, their bond a reminder of the kin they fought for. As the fire dimmed, the feast became a moment of reflection. Eric called for a toast to fallen comrades, those whose wounds had not spared them in past raids, their names etched in memory. Imagine Harold raising his horn, his thoughts drifting to the perils faced and the glory won, his oath to Odin fulfilled for now. The Longhouse, alive with song and kinship, was the heart of Viking life, a place where victory was savored and legends born. This feast marked the pinnacle of Harold's day, a celebration that wove his deeds into the village's saga. With the night waning, he prepared to rest, his body weary but spirit soaring. As we move forward, we'll follow Harold into the quiet of the night, where tales by the fire cement his place among the warriors, and dreams of future raids stow his soul. As the stars glittered over the Norwegian fjord, their light dancing on the inky waves, the Viking village settled into a quiet reverence. The Longhouse feast had filled hearts with triumph, but now, in the late hours of this 9th century night, Harold, the warrior, found solace by the dying embers of the hearth, his day marked by the clang of swords in training, the strategies of the chieftain's council, the sacred oaths to Odin, the chaos of the Northumbrian raid, and the raucous victory feast culminated in this moment of reflection. This chapter draws us into the firelit circle where Harold and his kin shared tales of glory, their stories weaving the day's deeds into the eternal saga of the Vikings, a legacy forged in courage and kinship. The longhouse, its oak beams steeped in the scent of smoke and mead, glowed softly as the feast's clamour faded. Picture the scene: the central hearth crackles, casting flickering shadows on fur-lined walls, while warriors, women, and children gather in a loose circle on woven mats. Harold, his silver armouring gleaming from the raid's spoils, sat cross-legged, his axe resting beside him. The air was heavy with warmth, the tang of pine, and the faint salt of the nearby sea. His sister Astrid, her looted brooch pinned to her shawl, leaned close, her eyes bright with pride. The village, bound by the day's victory, now turned to stories to etch their triumph into memory. An elder skald, his face lined like weathered oak, took center stage, his voice a low rumble as he began a tale of Ragnar Lothbrok's legendary raid on Paris. Imagine the circle hushed, the skald's hands trace the air, mimicking oars slicing through the Seine, as he recounts Ragnar's cunning, outwitting Frankish defenders to seize gold. Harold listened, his heart stirred by the saga, seeing his own raid mirrored in the tale his axe splitting the monastery gate, a deed now worthy of song. The skald's words wove Odin's wisdom and Thor's might into the narrative, reminding all that their victories were gifts from the gods, their losses a path to Valhalla. Harold, emboldened by mead and the day's success, shared his own story. Picture him standing, his voice steady, but thick with emotion, describing the rush of the raid, the Drakkars' silent approach, the shield wall's thunder, the glint of stolen gold under torchlight. His comrades nodded, some raising horns in salute, while children gazed in awe, dreaming of their own battles. Astrid added a verse, praising Harold's courage, her words turning his deeds into a fledgling legend. The fire's glow illuminated their faces, each storyteller adding to the village's saga, their voices blending like the fjord's waves, carrying tales of ancestors and heroes across generations. The night deepened with reflections on the Viking way. An elder spoke of the balance between war and kin, urging Harold to remember the village he fought for: wives weaving wool, farmers sowing barley, children carving runes. Picture a quiet moment. Harold clasps his Njornir amulet, his thoughts drifting to the gods who guided his axe, and to his fallen comrades, their names now honored in song. A young warrior, inspired by the tales, vowed to join the next raid, his voice trembling with ambition, while the skald strummed a lyre, his melody a haunting echo of the sea's call. As the fire dwindled to embers, the circle dispersed, warriors retiring to furs and benches, their dreams filled with battles yet to come. Imagine Harold stepping outside, the fjords chill kissing his face, the stars above whispering of Odin's ravens. He felt the weight of his armouring, a token of glory, and the warmth of his kin's pride, knowing his day had added a verse to the Viking saga. This quiet night sealed Harold's place among his people, his story now part of their eternal fire. With the warrior's day complete, we leave Harold to his rest, his spirit soaring with tales of glory. As we move forward, we'll embark on a new journey, following a Viking seafarer whose day is shaped by wind, waves, and the promise of distant shores. In the crisp dawn of a 9th century Norwegian fjord, where the sea whispered secrets to the rocky cliffs and gulls wheeled above pine-clad hills, Bjorn the seafarer began his day with the rhythm of hammer and wood. In a bustling coastal village, the Vikings' lifeblood was their ship's sleek drakkars that carried them to fame and fortune across stormy seas. This chapter plunges us into Bjorn's morning, as he toiled in the shipyard to craft a new vessel, its dragon-headed prow destined to slice through waves to distant shores. Amid the scent of pine tar and the clang of tools, Bjorn's skill and spirit shaped the heart of Viking exploration, his hands forging a path to adventure. The village shipyard, nestled where the fjord met the forest, buzzed with purpose as the sun rose, casting golden light on half-built hulls. Picture the scene. Wooden frames rise like the ribs of a great beast, surrounded by stacks of oak planks and coils of hemp rope, while the tide laps at the pebble-strewn shore. Bjorn, a lean man with weathered hands and salt-flecked beard, worked alongside shipwrights, his linen tunic rolled up as he hefted a heavy adze. The Draka, nearly complete, stood proud, its clinker-built hull gleaming with fresh tar, its mast ready to bear a sail woven by the village women. This ship, Bjorn knew, would carry dreams of trade, raid, or discovery to lands beyond the horizon. Crafting a Draka was a sacred art, blending skill with reverence for the sea gods. Bjorn shaped planks with precise cuts, each stroke of his adze smoothing oak to fit the hull's graceful curve. Imagine him kneeling beside the ship, his hands testing the wood's grain, ensuring it could withstand the North Sea's fury. His mentor, Old Leaf, a shipwright with eyes sharp as a gull's, guided the crew, barking orders to align planks with iron rivets. The team worked in harmony, their hammers ringing like a chant as they overlapped boards to create a flexible, wave-defying hull. Every cut and nail was a prayer to Njord, god of the sea, for safe voyages and bountiful returns. The dragon-headed prow, the ship's soul, demanded special care. Bjorn carved intricate scales into the oak figurehead, its snarling jaws meant to ward off sea spirits and terrify foes. Picture the moment. Sawdust swirls in the morning breeze. Bjorn's knife etches runes of protection into the prow, while children watch, clutching wooden boat models, dreaming of their own voyages. The village women brought offerings, bread and dried fish to bless the ship, placing them at a small shrine by the water's edge, where waves carried their prayers to the gods. These rituals wove the community into the ship's creation, each soul invested in its journey. Beyond craftsmanship, Bjorn's morning was a test of endurance and pride. He hauled logs from the forest with younger apprentices, their laughter mixing with the creak of ox-drawn carts. Imagine the strain. Bjorn's muscles ache as he lifts a beam, sweat beading on his brow, yet his heart swells with the knowledge that this Draka would sail to Francia or beyond. Leif shared tales of past voyages to the markets of Hidibi or the icy coasts of Iceland, fueling Bjorn's ambition to lead the ship's maiden journey. The shipyard was alive with purpose, every worker from rope makers to sail weavers, united in crafting a vessel worthy of Viking legend. As midday approached, the Draka neared completion, its hull sealed and sails tested. Bjorn stepped back, wiping sawdust from his hands, gazing at the ship that would carry him to glory. The morning's labor had laid the foundation for his day as a seafarer, a life ruled by wind and waves. With the ship ready, Bjorn prepared to meet the village's navigators, where charts and stars would guide the next steps of his journey. This shipyard morning was the pulse of Bjorn's day, a blend of craft, faith, and ambition that defined a Viking seafarer. As we move forward, we'll follow Bjorn to the Navigators' Council, where plans for a voyage to distant lands take shape under the watchful eyes of the stars. Beneath the midday sun that gilded the Norwegian fjord, where waves lapped at the village's rocky shore and the scent of pine tar lingered, Bjorn the seafarer carried the pride of his morning's labor on the Draka. In the 9th century, with the ship nearly ready, his day as a Viking seafarer turned toward the art of navigation, a skill as vital as the vessel itself. This chapter plunges us into the Navigators' Council, held in a windswept clearing by the sea, where Bjorn and his fellow mariners planned a voyage to the markets of Hidibi or beyond. Amid crude maps, whispered stars, and sacred runes, they charted a path across the treacherous North Sea, their fates tied to the wisdom of the gods and the skill of their hands. The council convened in a sheltered grove near the shipyard, where a circle of weathered stones marked a meeting place sacred to Njord, god of the sea. Picture the scene. Bjorn, his hands still rough with sawdust, stood among navigators and shipwrights, their faces bronzed by sun and salt. A wooden table held tools of their trade, a leather map etched with coastlines, a carved sunboard for tracking shadows, and a shimmering sunstone, said to find the sun through clouds. At the center stood Astrid, a revered navigator with eyes sharp as a raven's, her braided hair adorned with seashells. Her voice, steady as the tide, called the group to order. outlining the goal: a trade voyage to Hidibi, laden with furs and amber, to return with iron and cloth. Planning the voyage demanded mastery of Viking navigation. Astrid unrolled the leather map, its edges frayed from countless journeys, pointing to Hidibi's distant shores across the North Sea. Imagine Bjorn leaning in, his finger tracing the route past jagged coasts and hidden reefs, as Astrid described landmark glyphs, shaped like Thor's hammer, islands where gulls nested. She taught the use of the sunboard, a notched disc that measured the sun's height to gauge latitude, and demonstrated the sunstone, holding it aloft to catch light, its crystal glinting as it revealed the sun's position through fog. Bjorn, eager to lead, suggested timing the voyage with the spring tides, ensuring swift currents, while a younger navigator proposed a detour to avoid Saxon raiders. The council was a blend of strategy and spirituality. Astrid cast runestones to Seekingid's blessing, their clatter on the ground a whisper of divine guidance. Picture the moment. Warriors and sailors kneel as Astrid interprets the runes, her words promising fair winds, but warning of storms. Bjorn carved a rune of protection onto a wooden talisman, clutching it tightly, his faith in the gods as strong as his trust in the stars. A skald, strumming a lyre, recounted tales of Leif's voyages to Iceland, his stories of icebergs and whales, firing Bjorn's ambition to sail farther, perhaps to uncharted lands beyond the known world. The community's presence wove the council into the village's life. Women brought offerings, dried cod and ale to Onundred, placing them at a small shrine where waves lapped nearby. Imagine children watching, clutching carved ship models, their eyes wide as Astrid spoke of distant markets where amber fetched silver. Elders shared memories of past voyages, their voices rough with age, warning of currents that could splinter a draka. The council ended with a vow. Each seafarer raised a horn of ale, pledging to return with wealth or not at all, their voices echoing across the fjord, a chorus of defiance against the sea's perils. As the council dispersed, Bjorn prepared to inspect the draka's final fittings, his mind racing with routes and stars. The navigator's wisdom had set the course, blending skill with faith, readying him for the voyage ahead. This council was the heartbeat of Bjorn's day, a moment where the sea's call grew louder, urging him toward the horizon. With the voyage planned, Bjorn's day as a seafarer moved toward the practical preparations, where sails and provisions would be readied. As we move forward, we'll follow Bjorn to the shore, where the draka is fitted and the crew gathers, their spirits high with the promise of adventure across the waves. As the afternoon sun blazed over the Norwegian fjord, casting golden ripples across the water, Bjorn the seafarer stood on the rocky shore of his 9th century village, where the air thrummed with the promise of adventure. The draka, its dragon-headed prow gleaming from morning's craftsmanship, was nearly ready, and the navigator's council had charted a course to Hidibi's bustling markets. Now, Bjorn's day turned to the vital task of preparing the ship for its voyage, ensuring sails were taut, provisions stocked, and the crew united. This chapter immerses us in the bustling shipyard, where ropes creaked, barrels rolled, and the sea's call grew louder, as Bjorn readied his vessel for a journey that would test his skill and courage on the open waves. The shipyard, nestled between pine-clad hills and the fjord's edge, was a hive of activity. Picture the scene. The draka rests on wooden supports, its hull glistening with fresh tar, while waves lap at the pebble-strewn shore. Bjorn, his tunic dusted with sawdust, directed a crew of sailors and villagers, their hands busy with ropes and tools. The sail, woven from sturdy wool by the village women, was hoisted onto the mast, its red and white stripes snapping in the breeze. Bjorn tugged at the rigging, testing knots tied with hemp, his eyes scanning 4 flaws that could doom the ship in a storm. The crew's chatter, jokes and boasts mingled with the gulls' cries, a symphony of purpose under the open sky. Provisioning the draka was a communal effort, as vital as the ship's timbers. Bjorn oversaw the loading of barrels filled with dried cod, barley bread, and smoked pork, enough to sustain the crew for weeks. Imagine the bustle. Women haul sacks of oats from the village granary, their laughter ringing as they tease a young sailor fumbling with a cask. Children darted about, carrying bundles of dried herbs to ward off sickness, their small hands eager to contribute. Bjorn checked water casks, ensuring they were sealed against leaks, and packed furs for trade marten and fox pelts destined for Hidibi's merchants. Each item, from salted fish to spare oars, was a lifeline for the voyage, a hedge against the sea's unpredictability. The crew's preparation was as crucial as the ship's. Bjorn rallied his sailors, 10 weathered men, their faces etched with salt and stories assigning roles: oarsman, lookout, sailtender. Picture Bjorn clapping a hand on young Sven's shoulder, a first-time voyager, teaching him to lash barrels securely against rolling waves. The crew practiced rowing in unison, their oars dipping into the fjord's calm waters, mimicking the rhythm needed for stormy seas. A grizzled sailor, Olaf, shared tales of surviving gales off Jutland, his warnings sharpening the crew's focus. Bjorn, as lead navigator, inspected the sunboard and sunstone, ensuring they were ready to guide the ship when clouds hid the stars. Rituals wove spirituality into the preparations. The crew gathered at the ship's prow, where a small shrine to Njord stood, adorned with shells and driftwood. Imagine Bjorn pouring ale onto the sand, his voice low as he prayed for fair winds and safe return, the crew echoing his words. A village elder carved a rune of protection onto the mast, its lines promising Njord's favor. Women tied braided cords to the rigging, charms to appease sea spirits, their hands steady with hope. These acts, small but sacred, bound the crew to their gods and kin, their faith a shield against the ocean's wrath. As the sun dipped, the Draka stood ready, its sail furled and hold packed. Bjorn, wiping sweat from his brow, surveyed the ship, his heart swelling with anticipation. The village hummed with pride, every hand carpenter, weaver, child part of the voyage's promise. This preparation was the pulse of Bjorn's day, a bridge between land and sea, where skill and faith readied him for the journey ahead. With the Draka fitted, Bjorn's day moved toward the evening, where the crew would gather to share tales and steel their spirits. As we move forward, we'll follow Bjorn into the twilight, where the village celebrates the voyage's dawn, and the sea's call grows ever stronger. As dusk settled over the Norwegian fjord, painting the sky with streaks of amber and violet, the Viking village glowed with the warmth of anticipation. Bjorn, the 9th century seafarer, had spent his day crafting a Draka, charting a course to Hidibi in the Navigator's Council, and preparing the ship with provisions and sails. Now, as twilight deepened, he joined his crew and kin in a gathering by the shore, where the flicker of a bonfire and the murmur of the sea set the stage for tales that would steel their spirits for the voyage ahead. This chapter immerses us in the heart of the village, where stories of past journeys, songs of the gods, and bonds of kinship wove the crew into a single force, ready to face the North Sea's challenges. The gathering took place on a pebbled beach near the shipyard, where the Draka rested, its dragon-headed prow silhouetted against the fading light. Picture the scene: a roaring bonfire casts dancing shadows, its smoke curling toward stars just beginning to pierce the sky, while the fjord's gentle waves lap at the shore. Bjorn, his hands still rough from handling ropes, sat on a driftwood log, surrounded by his crew 10 sailors, their faces weathered by wind and hope. Villagers joined them, from elders with braided beards to children clutching carved oars, all drawn by the promise of stories. The air hummed with the scent of burning pine, roasted fish, and the salt of the sea, binding the community in shared purpose. The evening began with a skald, a wiry man named Sigurd, whose lyre notes rose like the tide. Imagine his voice, rich and resonant, singing of Leif's voyage to Iceland, where icebergs loomed like giants and whales sang beneath the waves. The crew leaned in, their eyes bright, as Sigurd wove tales of Njord's mercy-sparing ships from storms and Thor's hammer guarding against sea serpents. Bjorn, sipping ale from a horn, felt the stories stir his soul, his dreams of Hidibi's markets barred with silver and cloth growing vivid. The skald song turned to their Draka, praising its sturdy hull and the hands that built it, naming Bjorn as its guiding star, drawing cheers from the crowd. kinship fueled the gathering's warmth. Bjorn's wife, Freya, shared a tale of her father's trade voyage to Dublin, her words painting markets brimming with amber and slaves. Picture the moment. Freya stands, her woolen shawl catching the firelight, as she gifts Bjorn a woven charm for the voyage, her voice steady with pride. Children, inspired, recounted myths of Aegir, the sea god, their small voices trembling with awe as they described waves swallowing careless sailors. Elders added warnings of treacherous currents off Jutland, their wisdom grounding the crew's ambitions. Bjorn, moved, shared his own hopes to return with riches, to honor his kin, his words binding him closer to his sailors. Rituals wove spirituality into the night. The crew offered a small sacrifice, a loaf of barley bread, and a fish tossed into the fire, Funjud's favor. Imagine Bjorn leading a chant, his voice rising with the crew's, their words a plea for calm seas and swift winds. A young sailor, Sven, carved a rune of safe travel onto a pebble, placing it at the water's edge, where waves carried it to the gods. The village women tied braided cords to the crew's belts, charms to ward off harm, their hands brushing with quiet prayers. These acts, steeped in faith, reminded all that the sea was both ally and foe. Its will tied to divine whims. As the fire dimmed, the gathering grew reflective. Bjorn gazed at the Draka, its sails furled, ready for dawn's departure. Picture the final scene. The crew clasps hands, their silhouettes dark against the fjord's shimmer, vowing to face the sea as brothers. The village dispersed, leaving Bjorn with a heart full of tales and resolve, his day as a seafarer nearing its peak. This twilight gathering was the soul of his journey, a moment where stories and kinship forged a crew ready for the waves. With spirits high, Bjorn's day moved toward the voyage itself, where the Draka would face the open sea. As we move forward, we'll follow Bjorn into the heart of the journey, where wind, waves, and distant shores test his skill and courage. As dawn broke over the Norwegian fjord, its waters shimmering like molten silver under a pale sky, Bjorn the seafarer stood at the helm of his Draka, its dragon-headed prow slicing through the waves. In the 9th century, with the ship crafted, the course charted in the navigator's council, provisions loaded, and the crew's spirits forged by twilight tales, Bjorn's day reached its heart, the voyage to Db, a thriving trade hub across the North Sea. This chapter plunges us into the open sea, where wind, waves, and the whims of Njord tested Bjorn's skill and his crew's resolve. Amid storms, starlit nights, and the thrill of the unknown, their journey wove a saga of courage and discovery. The Draka set sail at first light, its woolen sail billowing with the morning breeze. Picture the scene. 10 oarsmen row in unison, their blades dipping into the fjord's calm waters, as the village fades into a haze of pine and mist. Bjorn, his salt-flecked beard catching the wind, gripped the steering oar, his eyes scanning the horizon. The crew, hardened sailors like Olaf and young Sven, chanted a rowing song, their voices blending with the creak of wood and the splash of waves. The Draka, laden with furs and amber for trade, glided past rocky cliffs, its hull flexing with the sea's rhythm, a testament to the shipwright's craft. Navigation was Bjorn's art, honed by years and the council's wisdom. By day, he used the sunboard, its notched edge tracking the sun's height to maintain their southern course. Imagine Bjorn holding the sunstone aloft, its crystal catching faint light through clouds, revealing the sun's path to keep them true. At night, stars guided him, Polaris, the North Star, a beacon above the waves. When fog cloaked the sea, he relied on instinct, noting the flight of gulls or the scent of distant land. Picture the crew's trust. Sven watches Bjorn, wide-eyed, as he adjusts the sail, steering past unseen reefs, his calm voice a steady anchor in the mist. The sea tested their mettle with a sudden storm. Dark clouds rolled in, waves crashing over the Draka's sides, soaking the crew in icy spray. Imagine the chaos. Bjorn shouts orders, his voice cutting through the wind's howl, as oarsmen strain against churning waters. Olaf bails water with a wooden bucket, while Sven clings to the rigging, securing the sail as it flaps wildly. The crew invoke Thor, their Mjolnir amulets clutched tightly, praying for his hammer to calm the tempest. Bjorn's skill held firm. He angled the ship to ride the waves, his hands steady on the oar, guiding them through the storm's fury until the sky cleared, revealing a rainbow like Freyr's promise. Camaraderie sustained them through the journey. During calm moments, the crew shared dried fish and ale, their laughter echoing over the waves. Picture Olaf recounting a voyage to Dublin, his tale of outrunning Saxon ships, sparking cheers. Bjorn taught Sven to read the waves' patterns, their bond growing like brothers. At night, under a canopy of stars, they sang of Njord's mercy, their voices a shield against the sea's vastness. These moments, forged in shared hardship, made the crew a single heart, their trust in Bjorn as vital as the Draka's timbers. As Hidibi's shores loomed after days at sea, the crew spotted its wooden palisades and bustling docks. Imagine the triumph. Bjorn steers the Draka into harbour, merchants waving from shore, their stalls piled with iron and cloth. The crew, weary but proud, prepared to trade their furs. Their journeys end a gateway to riches. Bjorn's heart swelled, knowing his navigation had brought them safely to this vibrant hub, where their saga would continue. This voyage was the pulse of Bjorn's day, a test of skill and spirit that defined a Viking seafarer. With Hidibi reached, the crew readied for trade and tales of their journey. As we move forward, we'll follow Bjorn into Hidibi's markets, where furs are bartered, and the siege trials become stories of triumph. As the sun hung low over the bustling trade hub of Hidibi, its light glinting off the wooden palisades and crowded docks, Bjorn the seafarer stood triumphant on the shores of 9th century Denmark. His day had been a saga of labour and courage, crafting the Draka, charting the course in the Navigator's Council, preparing provisions, bonding with his crew under twilight skies, and navigating the stormy North Sea. Now, in Hidibi's vibrant market, Bjorn's journey reached its climax as he bartered the voyages' bounty furs and amber for silver, cloth, and iron. This chapter immerses us in the chaotic, colourful world of Viking trade, where deals were struck, tales were shared, and the sea's rewards became a seafarer's legacy. Hidibi's market sprawled along the waterfront, a maze of stalls under canvas awnings, alive with the clamour of merchants and the scent of spices, tar, and smoked fish. Picture the scene. Bjorn, his weathered face flushed with pride, leads his crew through throngs of traders, their Draka moored nearby, its dragon prow towering over smaller boats. Stalls brimmed with goods, Frankish swords, Baltic amber, Irish wool, even silks from distant Byzantium. Bjorn carried sacks of marten and fox furs, their pelt soft as twilight, and pouches of amber, glowing like trapped sunlight, ready to trade for riches to bring home to his village. Trading was an art of wit and grit. Bjorn approached a Saxon merchant, his stall piled with iron ingots and woolen cloth. Imagine the negotiation. Bjorn lays out a bundle of furs, their sheen catching the merchant's eye, while he gestures to a stack of silver coins, their weight measured on a balanced scale. The merchant, his accent thick, haggled fiercely, offering cloth, but holding back silver until Bjorn added a polished amber bead, sealing the deal. Nearby, Olaf bartered dried cod for a bronze cauldron, his booming laugh drawing a crowd, while young Sven, wide-eyed, traded a small pelt for a bone-handled knife, his first taste of a trader's life. The market was a tapestry of cultures, woven by Viking voyages. Picture Bjorn weaving through stalls. A Norse woman sells glass beads beside a Frisian hawking wine, while a Slavic trader offers slaves, their chains clinking softly. Bjorn paused at a skald's performance, the bard's voice singing of voyages to Vinland, stirring dreams of lands beyond Hidibi. He shared a tale of his storm-tossed journey, his crew nodding proudly, their story now part of the market's buzz. A local woman, her hands stained with dye, offered Bjorn a woven cloak, thanks for his tale, her smile a bridge between strangers united by trade. Rituals sealed the day's success. Bjorn led his crew to a small shrine by the docks, where they offered a silver coin to Njord, thanking him for safe passage. Imagine the moment. Bjorn kneels, the coin glinting as it's placed on a driftwood altar, the crew chanting softly as waves lap nearby. They tied braided cords, gifts from their village, to the shrine, symbols of their journey's end. A passing merchant joined them, offering ale, and the crew toasted their whole silver, cloth, and iron to strengthen their village. These acts bound their success to the gods and kin left behind. As evening fell, Hidebi's market quieted, its stalls emptying under a starlit sky. Picture Bjorn standing by the Draka, his arms laden with traded goods, his heart full of triumph. The crew, their sacks heavy with spoils, prepared to sail home, their laughter echoing over the docks. This market was the culmination of Bjorn's day, where the sea's perils yielded wealth and stories, cementing his role as a seafarer. His journey, from crafting the ship to trading its bounty, was a saga worthy of the Skalds. With Hidebi's riches secured, Bjorn's day as a seafarer drew to a close, his legacy woven into the village's future. As we move forward, we'll shift to a new story, following a Viking settler whose day is shaped by the land, the hearth, and the enduring spirit of home. As dawn broke over the Norwegian fjord, its gentle light spilling across rolling hills and wooden longhouses, Ingrid the settler began her day in the heart of a 9th century Viking village. While warriors clashed and seafarers braved the seas, settlers like Ingrid were the backbone of Viking life, nurturing the land and kin that sustained their world. This chapter immerses us in Ingrid's morning, as she tended to her family's homestead fields, livestock, and hearth, laying the foundation for a day of labor, craft, and community. Amid the scent of dew-soaked barley and the lowing of cows, Ingrid's work wove the quiet strength of the Viking spirit, her hands shaping a life rooted in soil and home. The homestead, nestled in a valley where the fjord met fertile fields, hummed with the rhythm of daily tasks. Picture the scene. A longhouse with a moss-covered roof stands beside a barn, its timbers weathered by salt air, while barley fields sway under the morning breeze. Ingrid, a sturdy woman with braided hair and a woolen apron, stepped outside, her breath visible in the chill dawn. Her husband, a seafarer, was away, leaving her to manage the farm with her children and kin. She carried a wooden bucket, her boots sinking into the dew-damp earth, heading to the barn, where cows and goats awaited, their warmth a comfort against the morning's bite. Tending the livestock was Ingrid's first task, a labor that fed her family and village. She milked the cows, her hands steady as creamy streams filled the bucket, the animal's soft moos blending with the distant crash of waves. Imagine her kneeling in the straw, coaxing a stubborn goat with a handful of clover, her laughter soft as her young son, Eric, tried to mimic her. She gathered eggs from hens clucking in their pens, each one a small treasure for the day's meals. These tasks, simple yet vital, ensured the homestead's survival, providing milk, cheese, and eggs for the family and surplus for trade in the village. The fields demanded equal care. Ingrid checked the barley crops, her fingers brushing the golden stalks, testing full ripeness under the rising sun. Picture her walking rows of rye and oats, pulling weeds that threatened the harvest. Her daughter, Sigrid, trailing behind with a basket of tools. She repaired a wooden fence, hammering stakes with a mallet, her movements practiced from years of toil. The fields, fed by the fjord's rich soil, were the heart of the homestead, their yield supporting not just Ingrid's kin, but also the warriors and seafarers who relied on the settlers' bounty. Craftwork wove through the morning's labor. Ingrid paused to spin wool at a loom set outside the longhouse, her spindle twirling as she turned fleece into thread for winter cloaks. Imagine the scene. Sigrid watches, learning to card wool, while the rhythmic clack of the loom blends with birdsong. Ingrid also checked a batch of cheese curing in the barn, its tangy scent a promise of future feasts. These crafts, passed down through generations, were as sacred as a warrior's axe, each thread and wheel a testament to the settler's role in Viking life. Community tied Ingrid's work to the village. Neighbors stopped by, offering barley for her cheese, their chatter about harvests and voyages strengthening bonds. Picture a neighbor, Astrid, sharing a loaf of fresh bread, her tales of her seafarer husband echoing Ingrid's own hopes. A small offering, a sprig of herbs, was left at a stone shrine by the fields, a nod to Freyr for a bountiful harvest, the act uniting the homestead with the gods. Ingrid's children joined in, their small hands scattering grain for the hens, learning the rhythms of the land. As the morning sun climbed, Ingrid surveyed her homestead, her heart full of quiet pride. The fields, livestock, and crafts were the roots of her day, grounding the village in a life of resilience. With the homestead tended, Ingrid prepared to join the village women, where weaving and storytelling would shape the afternoon's work. This morning was the foundation of Ingrid's day, a blend of toil and care that defined a Viking settler. As we move forward, we'll follow Ingrid to the women's gathering, where crafts and tales strengthen the community, and the heart's warmth fuels their spirit. As dawn broke over the Norwegian fjord, its gentle light spilling across rolling hills and wooden longhouses, Ingrid the settler began her day in the heart of a 9th century Viking village. While warriors clashed and seafarers braved the seas, settlers like Ingrid were the backbone of Viking life, nurturing the land and kin that sustained their world. This chapter immerses us in Ingrid's morning, as she tended to her family's homestead fields, livestock, and hearth, laying the foundation for a day of labor, craft, and community. Amid the scent of dew-soaked barley and the lowing of cows, Ingrid's work wove the quiet strength of the Viking spirit, her hands shaping a life rooted in soil and home. The homestead, nestled in a valley where the fjord met fertile fields, hummed with the rhythm of daily tasks. Picture the scene. A long house with a moss-covered roof stands beside a barn, its timbers weathered by salt air, while barley fields sway under the morning breeze. Ingrid, a sturdy woman with braided hair and a woolen apron, stepped outside, her breath visible in the chill dawn. Her husband, a seafarer, was away, leaving her to manage the farm with her children and kin. She carried a wooden bucket, her boots sinking into the dew-damp earth, heading to the barn, where cows and goats awaited, their warmth a comfort against the morning's bite. Tending the livestock was Ingrid's first task, a labor that fed her family and village. She milked the cows, her hands steady as creamy streams filled the bucket, the animal's soft moos blending with the distant crash of waves. Imagine her kneeling in the straw, coaxing a stubborn goat with a handful of clover, her laughter soft as her young son, Eric, tried to mimic her. She gathered eggs from hens clucking in their pens, each one a small treasure for the day's meals. These tasks, simple yet vital, ensured the homestead's survival, providing milk, cheese, and eggs for the family and surplus for trade in the village. The fields demanded equal care. Ingrid checked the barley crops, her fingers brushing the golden stalks, testing full ripeness under the rising sun. Picture her walking rows of rye and oats, pulling weeds that threaten the harvest. Her daughter, Sigrid, trailing behind with a basket of tools. She repaired a wooden fence, hammering stakes with a mallet, her movements practiced from years of toil. The fields, fed by the fjord's rich soil, were the heart of the homestead, their yield supporting not just Ingrid's kin, but also the warriors and seafarers who relied on the settlers' bounty. Craftwork wove through the morning's labor. Ingrid paused to spin wool at a loom set outside the longhouse, her spindle twirling as she turned fleece into thread for winter cloaks. Imagine the scene. Sigrid watches, learning to card wool, while the rhythmic clack of the loom blends with birdsong. Ingrid also checked a batch of cheese curing in the barn, its tangy scent a promise of future feasts. These crafts, passed down through generations, were as sacred as a warrior's axe, each thread and wheel a testament to the settler's role in Viking life. Community tied Ingrid's work to the village. Neighbors stopped by, offering barley for her cheese, their chatter about harvests and voyages strengthening bonds. Picture a neighbor, Astrid, sharing a loaf of fresh bread, her tales of her seafarer husband echoing Ingrid's own hopes. A small offering, a sprig of herbs, was left at a stone shrine by the fields, a nod to Freyr for a bountiful harvest, the act uniting the homestead with the gods. Ingrid's children joined in, their small hands scattering grain for the hens, learning the rhythms of the land. As the morning sun climbed, Ingrid surveyed her homestead, her heart full of quiet pride. The fields, livestock, and crafts were the roots of her day, grounding the village in a life of resilience. With the homestead tended, Ingrid prepared to join the village women, where weaving and storytelling would shape the afternoon's work. This morning was the foundation of Ingrid's day, a blend of toil and care that defined a Viking settler. As we move forward, we'll follow Ingrid to the women's gathering, where crafts and tales strengthen the community, and the heart's warmth fuels their spirit. As the noon sun bathed the Norwegian fjord in a warm golden light, casting long shadows across the barley fields, Ingrid the settler returned to her longhouse in the heart of her 9th century Viking village. Her morning had been a tapestry of toil tending crops and livestock, then weaving and storytelling with the village women binding her to the land and kin. Now, with the day at its peak, she turned to the hearth, where the midday meal would gather her family and neighbors, nourishing both body and spirit. This chapter immerses us in the smoky warmth of the longhouse, where Ingrid's cooking, laughter, and shared stories wove the threads of Viking family life, their bonds as enduring as the oak beams above. The longhouse, its moss-covered roof blending with the surrounding hills, was the heart of Ingrid's world. Picture the scene, a cavernous hall with a central hearth, its fire crackling beneath a blackened cauldron, while sunlight streamed through gaps in the wooden walls, illuminating furs and woven tapestries. Ingrid, her apron dusted with flour, stirred a stew of barley, smoked pork, and wild leeks, its rich aroma filling the air. Her children, Eric and Sigrid, bustled about, Eric hauling firewood, Sigrid grinding barley on a quern stone, their chatter mingling with the pop of burning logs. The hearth was more than a fire, it was the pulse of the home, where food forged family. Cooking was a craft honed by generations, and Ingrid's hands moved with practiced grace. She kneaded dough for flatbread, her fingers shaping it on a hot stone by the fire, the bread's nutty scent rising as it browned. Imagine her slicing cheese from the morning's milking, its creamy tang a gift from the cows she tended, while adding dried herbs gathered from the hills to the stew for flavor. Sigrid, learning at her side, tossed in a handful of nettles, giggling when they stung her fingers, while Ingrid taught her to balance flavors, a skill as vital as weaving. The meal, simple yet hearty, was a testament to the homestead's bounty, sustaining warriors and seafarers when they returned. The meal drew the community together, as neighbors joined the family. Astrid, from the women's gathering, arrived with a basket of fresh apples, her seafarer husband's tales still fresh in her mind. Picture the longhouse table, rough-hewn and laden with wooden bowls, as Ingrid ladled stew for her guests. A neighbor, old Bjorn, brought a jug of ale, his weathered hands trembling as he shared it, while his wife told of a bountiful harvest that fed the village through a harsh winter. The children listened wide-eyed, Eric mimicking his father's rowing motions, dreaming of the sea, while Sigrid shyly offered a guest a slice of bread, her pride glowing. Stories around the hearth were as nourishing as the food. Ingrid recounted a tale of her mother, who once fed a wandering scored with stew, earning a song that echoed for years. Imagine Astrid adding a story of Freya, goddess of fertility, blessing a feast that saved her kin from famine, her voice soft but reverent. The group laughed as old Bjorn spun a yarn about outwitting a greedy trader for grain, his gestures broad, drawing cheers. These tales, woven with the meal, strengthened the bonds of kin and neighbor, their voices a chorus that echoed the village's resilience. Rituals sanctified the gathering. Before eating, Ingrid poured a small bowl of stew onto the hearth as an offering to Freyr, praying for continued bounty. Picture the moment. The fire hisses as the offering sizzles, the family joining hands, their murmured thanks rising to the gods. Sigrid placed a sprig of thyme by the hearth, a charm for a health, her small hands steady with purpose. These acts, rooted in faith, tied the meal to the divine, ensuring the land's gifts would endure. As the meal ended, the longhouse glowed with warmth and laughter. The table cleared, but hearts full. Ingrid surveyed her family, her spirit lifted by their shared strength. The midday meal was the core of her day, a moment where food and stories sustained the Viking way. With the hearth tended, Ingrid prepared for the afternoon's work, where crafting and teaching her children would carry the homestead forward. This meal was the soul of Ingrid's day, a blend of sustenance and kinship that defined a Viking settler. As we move forward, we'll follow Ingrid to the afternoon's tasks, where her crafts and teachings shape the future, and the village's spirit thrives. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Norwegian fjord, its golden rays warming the barley fields and wooden longhouses, Ingrid the settler moved from the warmth of the midday meal to the steady rhythm of crafting in her 9th century Viking village. Her day had been woven with tending the homestead, sharing stories with the women, and nourishing her family at the hearth. Now, in the quiet hours of the afternoon, she turned to leather work, tool repair, and teaching her children, tasks that shaped both the tools of survival and the future of her kin. This chapter immerses us in the sunlit yard of Ingrid's homestead, where skilled hands and patient guidance forged a legacy as enduring as the land itself. The crafting took place in a shaded corner of the homestead, near the barn where tools and materials were stored. Picture the scene. A wooden workbench stands under a spreading oak, its branches swaying in the fjord's breeze, while the air carries the tang of leather, wood smoke, and damp earth. Ingrid, her woolen apron tied tight, worked with a deer hide, her knife slicing it into strips for belts and straps. Her children, Eric and Sigrid, sat nearby, their small hands busy with tasks suited to their age, their eyes fixed on their mother's steady movements. The distant lowing of cows and the chatter of neighbors blended with the rhythmic scrape of Ingrid's tools, a symphony of settler life. Leather work was a vital craft, turning hides into goods that sustained the village. Ingrid softened the deer hide in a barrel of water mixed with bark tannin, her arms strong as she needed it pliable. Imagine her stretching the leather across a frame, scraping it smooth with a flint blade, her focus unbroken as she shaped a sturdy belt for her seafarer husband. Sigrid, eager to learn, stitched a small pouch under Ingrid's guidance, her needle awkward, but determined, while Ingrid praised her effort, teaching her to punch holes with an awl. These skills, passed from mother to daughter, ensured the family's clothing and tools endured the harsh winters, supporting warriors and seafarers alike. Tool repair kept the homestead thriving. Ingrid sharpened a plough blade on a whetstone, its edge gleaming as she worked, sparks flying under the afternoon sun. Picture Eric watching, his hands clutching a wooden mallet, had been tasked to sand smooth, learning the value of a sharp tool for tilling fields. Ingrid repaired a broken hoe, binding its handle with leather strips, her movements precise as she tested its balance. She shared stories of her father, who crafted axes that felled trees for the longhouse, his legacy in every swing. These tasks, though humble, were the backbone of the village, ensuring fields yielded barley and homes stood strong. Teaching her children was Ingrid's deepest craft, shaping the future of the Viking way. She showed Eric how to carve a rune of strength onto a wooden handle, his small knife trembling, but guided by her steady hand. Imagine Sigrid practicing knots with leather cords, her mother's voice soft but firm, explaining their use for securing sails or pens. Ingrid wove lessons into the work tales of Freya's wisdom, of ancestors who tamed the land, her words planting seeds of pride in her children. The homestead hummed with purpose, each task a lesson in resilience, preparing Eric and Sigrid for lives as settlers or seafarers. Community wove through the afternoon's work. A neighbor, Astrid, stopped by to trade a clay pot for Ingrid's leather straps, their banter light as they discussed the harvest. Picture a moment of laughter. Eric mimics his mother's sharpening, earning a grin from Astrid, who shares a tale of her own son's first craft. Ingrid offered a small prayer at a stone shrine by the workbench, scattering barley for Freyr, her children joining in, their voices a soft chant for prosperity. These acts tied the homestead to the village, each craft a thread in the communal tapestry. As the afternoon waned, Ingrid surveyed her work, leather belts finished, tools sharpened, children taught, her heart full of quiet pride. The crafting was the pulse of her day, blending skill and legacy to sustain her kin. With the sun dipping, she prepared to join the village for an evening gathering, where stories and song would seal the day's labor. This afternoon of crafting was the core of Ingrid's day, shaping both toils and kin for the Viking future. As we move forward, we'll follow Ingrid to the evening's communal gathering, where the village unites in celebration, and the settler spirit shines bright. As dusk draped the Norwegian fjord in hues of violet and gold, the 9th century Viking village glowed with the warmth of community, its longhouses and fields bathed in the fading light. Ingrid the settler, having tended her homestead, woven with the women, shared a midday meal, and crafted tools in the afternoon, now joined her kin for an evening gathering by the shore. This moment, where firelight and fjord met, was the heart of Viking life, uniting settlers, warriors, and seafarers in stories and song. This chapter immerses us in the vibrant circle of the village, where Ingrid's presence anchored the community, her day's labor celebrated in tales that echoed across the ages, binding all to the land and gods. The gathering unfolded on a pebbled beach near the fjord, where a towering bonfire roared, its flames licking the twilight sky. Picture the scene. Villagers sit on logs and furs, their faces aglow, as the Draka's silhouette looms nearby, a reminder of seafaring kin. Ingrid, her woolen shawl catching the fire's warmth, settled beside her children, Eric and Sigrid, their eyes bright with excitement. Neighbors, farmers, weavers, elders formed a wide circle, their voices mingling with the crackle of pine logs and the fjord's gentle waves. The air carried the scent of burning wood, roasted barley, and sea salt, a tapestry of the village's life woven by Ingrid's daily toil. A skald named Halvar, his beard flecked with silver, led the gathering with a song, his lyre's notes soaring like gulls. Imagine his voice weaving a tale of a settler who tamed barren land, her crops feeding warriors who won glory. Ingrid felt pride swell, her morning's barley harvest mirrored in the story, her work a foundation for the village's strength. Halvar sang of Freyr, god of fertility, blessing fields with sun and rain, his words stirring cheers as villagers raised horns of ale. Eric, clutching a carved wooden horse, whispered to Ingrid, asking if their crops pleased the gods, her nod a quiet affirmation of their shared duty. Stories flowed like the fjord's tide, binding the community. Astrid, Ingrid's friend from the women's gathering, shared a tale of her seafarer husband's return with Hidibi's riches, her voice bright with hope. Picture Sigrid, shy but bold, recounting a myth of Freya's golden apples, her small voice growing stronger as the crowd clapped. An elder spoke of a winter when settlers' cheese and bread saved the village, his words honoring Ingrid's morning tasks. Ingrid added her own story, describing the leather belt she crafted, its stitches a prayer for her husband's safe voyage, her words drawing nods from neighbors who knew the weight of waiting. Rituals deepened the gathering's purpose. Ingrid led a small offering, placing a loaf of her flatbread by the fire for Freyr, its crust sizzling as she prayed for a bountiful harvest. Imagine the moment. The crowd joins her chant, their voices a hymn to the gods, while Sigrid scatters wildflowers, a charm for prosperity. A warrior, fresh from a raid, tied a rune-carved stone to a driftwood shrine, honoring Ingrid for safe seas, his act tying the settlers' work to the village's voyages. These rituals, woven with faith, anchored the gathering, ensuring the gods blessed their fields and hearths. The evening brimmed with unity. Neighbors traded goods. Ingrid swapped a cheese wheel for a neighbor's woven basket, their laughter sealing bonds. Picture Eric wrestling with a friend, their playful tumbles cheered by onlookers, while Sigrid danced to a flute's tune, her steps mimicking waves. The fire's glow united young and old, settler and warrior, their shared stories a shield against hardship. Ingrid's heart swelled, her day's labor fields, crafts, meals now a thread in the village's saga, her role as vital as any seafarer's sail. As the fire dimmed, the gathering wound down, stars gleaming above the fjord. Ingrid gathered her children, their faces flushed with joy, ready to return to the longhouse. The evening was the soul of her day, a celebration of the settlers' work that sustained the Viking way. With the village united, Ingrid prepared for the night's rest, where dreams of harvests and kin would carry her forward. This gathering was the heartbeat of Ingrid's day, a moment of unity that defined a Viking settler. As we move forward, we'll follow Ingrid into the night, where quiet reflections and final tasks seal her legacy, and the village rests under the stars. As night cloaked the Norwegian fjord in a tapestry of stars, their light shimmering on the still waters, the 9th century Viking village settled into a quiet embrace. Ingrid the settler, her day woven with tending fields, weaving with kin, sharing meals, crafting tools, and uniting the community in an evening gathering, now stood at the threshold of rest. The long house, its hearth glowing softly, was her sanctuary, where final tasks and reflections sealed her role as the village's backbone. This chapter draws us into the stillness of Ingrid's night, where embers and starlight framed her thoughts of family, land, and legacy, her labor a quiet saga that anchored the Viking spirit. The long house, its oak beams steeped in the scent of smoke and barley, glowed with the hearth's fading embers. Picture the scene. Furs draped the walls, casting soft shadows, as Ingrid sat on a woven mat, her children, Eric and Sigrid, curled nearby on sleeping benches. The fjord's gentle waves whispered outside, blending with the crackle of the fire, a lullaby for the weary. Ingrid, her woolen shawl loose around her shoulders, mended a torn tunic by firelight, her needle glinting as she stitched, her hands steady despite the day's toil. The quiet was a gift, a moment to reflect on the work that sustained her kin and village. Final tasks marked the night's rhythm. Ingrid checked the hearth, stirring the embers to ensure warmth through the chill night, her breath visible in the cool air. Imagine her adding a log, its resin popping as it caught flame, while she secured a butter churn for the next day's work. She tucked a woven blanket over Sigrid, whispering a prayer to Freya for her daughter's dreams, then handed Eric a small carved runestone, a token of strength he'd crafted that afternoon. These acts, small but deliberate, were the threads that tied her day's labor to the future, ensuring the homestead endured. Reflections by the hearth wove Ingrid's thoughts into the village's saga. She recalled the morning's barley fields, their golden stalks a promise of harvest, and the women's laughter as they wove under the pines. Picture her gazing at the embers, her mind drifting to her seafarer husband, whose dracker sailed distant seas, his safety tied to her prayers. She thought of the evening's tales of Freya's bounty, of ancestors who tamed the land, her heart swelling with pride for her role. Ingrid's work, from milking cows to teaching her children, was the root of the village's strength, supporting warriors and seafarers whose glories rested on her toil. The community's presence lingered in the night's stillness. A neighbor's gift, a clay pot from the midday meal, sat by the hearth, a reminder of shared bonds. Imagine Ingrid touching the pot, her fingers tracing its curve, recalling Astrid's story of waiting for her seafarer kin. She whispered a tale to her sleeping children, a soft recounting of her mother's wisdom in curing cheese, passing the legacy forward. The longhouse, though quiet, pulsed with the village's spirit, each settler's work a verse in a shared song, their lives intertwined like the fjord's tides. A final ritual sealed the day. Ingrid stepped outside, the starry sky vast above the fjord, and placed a sprig of thyme by a small stone shrine, a thanks to Freya for the day's bounty. Picture the moment. The stars gleam like Odin's eyes, the fjord's chill kissing her face, as she murmured a prayer for her family's future. Returning to the hearth, she banked the fire, its glow a beacon of home. The act, simple yet sacred, tied her to the gods and land, her faith as enduring as the cliffs beyond. As sleep beckoned, Ingrid lay on her furs, the longhouse embracing her like kin. Her day fields tended, crafts shaped, stories shared, had woven her into the village's heart, her legacy as vital as any warrior's axe or seafarer's sail. The stars above whispered of harvests to come, and Ingrid drifted to dreams, her spirit at peace. This night was the close of her saga, a settler's life of hearth and craft that held the Viking world together. With Ingrid's day complete, we leave her to rest, her work a foundation for her people. As we move forward, we'll conclude the video, reflecting on the lives of warrior, seafarer, and settler. Their stories a testament to the Viking spirit. As the Norwegian fjord lay shrouded in the deep night, its stars a glittering canopy above the silent village. Ingrid the settler lingered by the hearth of her 9th century longhouse, where the embers cast a soft glow. Her day had been a rich saga tending fields and livestock, weaving with the women, sharing a midday meal, crafting tools, uniting in the village gathering, and reflecting under starlight. Now, in the late hours, with her children Eric and Sigrid not yet asleep, Ingrid turned to the sacred task of passing down the wisdom of the land, ensuring the homestead's legacy endured. This chapter immerses us in the quiet warmth of the longhouse, where Ingrid's stories and teachings wove her children into the Viking tapestry, their future as vital as the soil beneath their feet. The longhouse, its oak beams steeped in the scent of pine and wool, was a haven of stillness, the fjords' whispers faint beyond its walls. Picture the scene, the hearth's embers pulse, casting flickering light on furs and woven rugs, while Ingrid sat cross-legged, her hands resting on a wooden spindle. Eric and Sigrid, their eyes heavy but eager, huddled close, wrapped in blankets, the glow illuminating their faces. The air held the warmth of the fire, the faint tang of cheese curing in the corner, and the comfort of home, a sanctuary where Ingrid's voice would shape the next generation. Teaching began with practical skills, the foundation of settler life. Ingrid showed Eric how to sharpen a knife on a whetstone, her hands guiding his to find the right angle, the blade gleaming as it honed. Imagine Eric's focus, his small hands steadying under her touch, learning a skill to repair plows or carve wood. Sigrid, curious, practiced tying knots with hemp rope, her fingers fumbling as Ingrid taught her the knots used to secure livestock pens or fishing nets. These lessons, rooted in the day's tasks, were more than craft, they were the roots of survival, ensuring the homestead thrived when Ingrid's hands grew old. Stories carried the weight of wisdom, linking past to future. Ingrid recounted a tale of her grandmother, who sowed barley through a famine, her foresight saving the village. Picture her voice, soft but steady, painting fields under snow, her grandmother's hands planting seeds by moonlight. Eric listened, clutching the rune stone head carved, asking if his crops could be as strong, while Sigrid wondered if Freya blessed their fields. Ingrid wove in myths of Freya, whose golden boar brought fertility, her words sparking awe as she tied their daily toil to the gods' favor, teaching her children to honor the land. The night's lessons included the community's strength. Ingrid shared a story of a winter when neighbors pulled grain to feed all, their unity a shield against hunger. Imagine Sigrid's eyes widening as Ingrid described trading cheese for wool, her voice echoing the women's gathering. She taught Eric to respect the village's warriors and seafarers, explaining how her barley fed their raids and voyages, their glories built on settlers' work. The children nodded, their small hands tracing runes of kinship on a wooden plank, learning that every task from milking to weaving wove them into the village's saga. A final ritual sealed the night's teachings. Ingrid led her children to the hearth, where they placed a small loaf of bread as an offering to Freya, its crust warm from the midday meal. Picture the moment. The embers flare as the bread sizzles, Ingrid's prayer for her children's future blending with their soft voices. She tied a braided cord around each child's wrist, a charm for strength, her hands gentle but firm. This act, steeped in faith, bound their lessons to the gods, ensuring the homestead's wisdom endured. As the hearth faded to ash, Ingrid tucked her children into their furs, their dreams filled with fields and sagas. She stood by the longhouse door, gazing at the starry fjord, her heart full of pride. Her day tending, crafting, teaching had rooted her family in the Viking legacy, her work as enduring the cliffs. This night of wisdom was the capstone of Ingrid's saga, a settler's life that held the village fast. With Ingrid's day complete, her legacy passed to her kin. We leave her to rest, her work eternal. As we conclude, we'll reflect on the warrior, seafarer, and settler, their lives a testament to the Viking spirit. As the sun sets over the Norwegian fjord, its final rays gilding the waves and casting long shadows across the rugged cliffs, we bid farewell to a day in the life of three Vikings whose stories have woven a vibrant tapestry of 9th century life. Harold the warrior, with his axe and shield, carved glory through training, raids, and feasts. His courage a fire that burned for Odin and kin. Bjorn the seafarer, his hands steady on the Drakar's helm, sailed through storms to trade in Hidibi's markets, his spirit bound to the sea's endless call. Ingrid the settler, her heart rooted in the soil, nurtured fields, crafted tools, and taught her children, her labor the foundation that held the village fast. Together, their days filled with sweat, song, and saga paint a portrait of the Viking world, where every life, from warrior to settler, pulsed with purpose. Picture the village now, its longhouses aglow under a starlit sky, the fjord whispering tales of valor, adventure, and hearth. Harald's shield, dented from battle, hangs beside Bjorn's sunstone, its crystal catching moonlight, while Ingrid's woven cloth drapes a bench, each thread a testament to their shared legacy. Their stories, though distinct, intertwine like the roots of an ancient oak, each role fighting, sailing, nurturing vital to the Viking spirit. The gods, from Odin's wisdom to Freyr's bounty, watched over them, their rituals and offerings a bridge between earth and divine, ensuring their sagas endured. This journey through one day reveals the heart of Viking life, a balance of strength, exploration, and community. Harald's raids brought riches, but Ingrid's harvests fed his strength. Bjorn's voyages carried the village's furs to distant shores, but Ingrid's hearth welcomed him home. Each life, from the clash of swords to the quiet clack of a loom, wove a saga that echoed across generations, their deeds carved into the skald songs and the land's memory. The fjord, the longhouse, the sea, they remain eternal witnesses to a people who lived boldly, their spirits as vast as the horizons they chased. We hope this glimpse into the Viking world has stirred your imagination, drawing you into the firelit halls and wind-swept seas of a time long past. If these tales of Harald, Bjorn, and Ingrid have kindled your curiosity, join us for more journeys into history. Subscribe to our channel to explore new sagas, from ancient warriors to forgotten realms, and hit the bell to never miss a story. Share your thoughts in the comments whose life inspired you most. Like this video to keep the Viking spirit alive, and follow us on this path of discovery. Until the next tale, may your hearth burn bright and your dreams sail far.